So we're starting this podcast. We have Gommaar here from the ETH. This podcast is in English. The other ones were in Swiss German, so a little difference. Maybe you can just introduce yourself and tell the people who you are, where you came from, what you were doing, what you're doing now at the ETH.
Yes, so as stated, I'm Gommaar D'Hulst. I am from Belgium, so I came here 2 years ago. I am a scientist. That's, let's say, the first thing I am. I studied exercise sciences in Belgium, in Leuven, so in close to Brussels. So exercise and movement sciences, and then I was intrigued by exercise physiology. So everything that was happening with the body when you move, so with the metabolism when you move. So I did a PhD. I started a PhD back in 2010 in the lab of exercise physiology in Leuven. I did 6 years for my PhD. And then, small 2 years ago, a new professor started here, the new lab of exercise and health here at the ETH, where we are now. And I started there as a postdoc, so as a postdoctoral researcher, doing science about these topics.
What did you bring here? So why are you here now? What's the reason?
So yeah, it's a new lab, so people, they need people obviously to do the actual hands-on science. I brought the knowledge from my PhD, and I'm actually on a project that I'm starting in my PhD, and I'm proceeding this here at the ETH. We can maybe go a bit deeper into these kind of things, but yeah. So I brought this here, and I bring some, let's say, some knowledge for PhD students that also are working here since in short time. And I guide them, let's say, in a certain way.
Let's be a bit more specific. So you're saying you're on a project now.
Yeah.
Can you describe the project?
So as I said, I did my PhD in let's say the lab of exercise physiology, meaning I was working with hypoxia, so lack of oxygen. So what we had a room, or we have a room, let's say 5 by 5, 6 by 6, where you could lower the oxygen content. So you literally walk in and you are at 5,000 meters altitude. So higher, I heard, than Jungfrau, a little bit higher than Jungfrau Ringjung. So I did my first study as a PhD student. I was very young, 23. I started with a human study where we measured the effect of hypoxia on the let's say the biology of the muscle. So we were interested in the muscle itself, because we know that if you go to altitude for let's say quite a long period of time, at least 3 weeks, you start to lose muscle mass quite rapidly. And people know it's because of malnutrition, and you eat a bit less, you're less hungry, but also you literally lose muscle mass because of the lack of oxygen in your body. And I was researching more the molecular factors which are involved in this process. And then I proceeded, to be more specific, I proceeded to mice models, and where we can specifically delete certain regions of the genome that these mice cannot sense the oxygen anymore. It's called prolyl hydroxylase. It's a gene that everyone has. And if you knock it out in the muscle, we are now in this project, you see that if you then give leucine, which is an anabolic amino acid, it's the most anabolic amino acid, these mice don't react that well on this leucine. So the kinases, the metabolic factors in the muscle are less affected in these muscle compared to normal mice.
You mentioned this room 5 by 5.
Yes.
So you're doing studies with humans.
Yeah. So I did not in the ETH.
Yeah.
That's more mice, but I did studies with humans where we took muscle specimens, so muscle biopsies from these humans before and during the stay in the room. This is what we did a lot of times. It's a doctor that does the studies, that does the biopsies. So yeah, that's pretty interesting.
I know that you're a CrossFitter. So first of all, where do you train?
I train in Kreis 9, CrossFit Kreis 9 in Altstetten. Since I came here, my girlfriend was already here when I came here, and she went to K9. She liked it there. She liked the atmosphere, so I came there as well.
Have you been CrossFitting before in Belgium?
Yes, I've started CrossFitting at the end of my PhD, so that's now, let's say, 4 years and a couple months ago, so quite long already. 4 years and a couple months. I started CrossFitting in Leuven, so in the city where I studied, and I was lucky that it actually was a good box, good coaches. I improved quite a lot because of I know it's a good box. So
tell us something like what's your favorite movement or what are your PRs today?
So that's quite easy for me. So I will maybe talk about it later. I'm very explosive and strong. So I'm a type 2 person, let's say, so a fast twitch muscle fiber, and I have a very high deadlift for my body weight and a high squat. One RM. So I think in pounds. I'm sorry for that. I have a 530 deadlift pounds and a 395, just not 400 back squat.
That's strong. I think it's like divided by 2, right?
2.2.
Yeah,
so it's
that's really strong.
Yeah, I'm relatively strong, but interesting enough, in CrossFit itself, I'm okay, but I'm not that good because I will decrease my power output quite quickly.
Yeah.
So Fran, I'm pretty good, but if I have to do a long workout, I will be okay, but mediocre, let's say. So it's for me myself, I find it very interesting CrossFit because of the physiology that's involved. I mean, so much physiology involved in CrossFit because of the fact that, everyone is different. Some people are very good in short workouts. You know that as a coach. I see that as well. And some people beat me that are much weaker than me, but they beat me easily in certain workouts. That's how CrossFit is. That's the beauty of the sports, I think.
Are you participating in the Opens?
I am participating. I am participating. I just want to challenge myself. But again, in these kind of workouts, I'm not super good. But I don't care too much. I just want to have fun and breathe the atmosphere, so to say.
You already mentioned that you can bridge sort of the gap between your activity at ETH and the physiology, the knowledge you have in that topic, and CrossFit.
Yes.
So is there like a specific topic that you're watching closely when you CrossFit?
Yeah. So as I already mentioned, it's difficult, but for example, how the physiology, the fiber type of a person is. So people will know, or they don't know. You have broadly you have two kinds of types of muscle fibers. You have the type 1, which are the marathoners. They have 60-70% of type 1 fibers. They consume a lot of oxygen, and they can, let's say, they can keep going. They are oxidative, so to say. So they are red because of the myoglobin in them. And then you also have the type 2 fibers, and that's for the sprinters, the Usain Bolts. And these people are very explosive and they are very strong, but they fatigue very fast. So that is something you can clearly see in CrossFit, because some workouts are designed for more type 2 persons, and some workouts are completely designed for type 1 fiber people. And fiber determination is not determining everything, but it is to a large extent, let's say, in CrossFit, I find.
Is it genetic, or can you train the fiber type?
Yeah, it's a typical question. It's largely genetic. You can train a fast twitch fiber. If you train a lot, it will slow down a little bit, so to speak. So you will get a little bit more slow fibers. But what is more interesting, I think, for CrossFitters, for normal human beings like us, is that you can train both fibers. Meaning you can get better. Even though you have, let's say, 60% type 2 and 40% type 1, which is a normal, let's say, proportion, you can train both fibers, so to speak, that you can get better in, let's say, fast events, but also in slow events.
So it's not really about the distribution of the fiber types, but you can get more explosive and you can get more endurance.
By training specific areas, by putting in specific areas. If this will result in a fiber type switch, as you say, distribution, it's difficult to say, and it's also not super important for an athlete, I think. It's important to know that if you have 50-50, you can train both and you can get stronger and also, let's say, faster in workouts, more longer workouts.
That's interesting. What are some questions from the seminar that you had, do you remember anything that a lot of people asked before?
Yeah, so there were some things about nutrition. Obviously, it's always about nutrition that specific people ask, and I have some. So for example, what I can state is some nutritional supplements that could enhance your performance. If we want to go deeper into that, if you're fine with that.
Sure.
Or,
are you a fan of supplements? So do you recommend them?
Yeah. So I told you before, but so. Are you a fan? It's like a question. I find it difficult to answer because
you're a scientist.
Yes, as I said, I'm a scientist. Let's say I'm more a scientist than a personal trainer and than anything else. Certainly than a nutritionist. But so I can read the papers. I have access to the papers, and I read what is good, what is well evidenced, and what is less well evidenced. So am I a fan of nutritional supplements? I know they in certain athletes in certain periods of their training, they probably can help. So, is it? Do they harm people? Probably not. So, yes, I'm a fan in that case.
Tell us which supplements. So which ones are you talking about?
Before I state that, I wanted to speak about the most important thing is that you eat healthy. You know, the supplements it's just the top of the iceberg. So.
Let's dive into that. What is eating healthy for you?
Yeah. Difficult to say. Difficult to say. It's most important that you have a good balance in macronutrients, so fats, proteins, and carbohydrates. That you, in my opinion, don't completely rule out one macro. It's not necessary, and it's not well evidenced that you have to do this. Certainly, when you do CrossFit. And also that you have enough micronutrients so that your blood parameters are fine. If you can do that with your own nutrition, I think you can have many varieties in nutrition that are healthy.
Are there certain percentages working for a lot of people, talking about macronutrients?
So I always say that if you are a CrossFitter, you really have to not focus, but you have to keep your carbohydrate intake high enough, right?
Meaning, what is high enough?
Meaning 45 to 50% of carbs. Then, let's say, 30 to 35% of fats, and then around 15% of proteins, which is 1.6 to 1.8 gram per kilogram of body weight. If you calculate that, that's around 15%. So that's what I say, but if you are really training a lot, twice a day or at least once a day for 7 to 10 days, you can even increase your carbohydrate intake a little bit more because you will, that's the main fuel you will use during CrossFit workouts and strength training.
So where's that paleo idea coming from?
Yeah.
Not eating a lot of carbs, eating mostly meats and fats.
I don't know.
It's just
I don't know, but it's some guy who, I don't know. As I said, I'm not a nutritionist. I don't understand why people would actually do this because also it's also impossible to actually eat how these cavemen ate. I don't really know why you should do it. It's very difficult to sustain, I think. But yeah.
Is there research backing that up?
There is not much research backing that up. Certainly not that it's better for athletic populations. You know, that's always the caveat in these things. Maybe if you have a sedentary person who doesn't do any exercise, it's probably not healthy to eat a lot of carbs. It's not necessary for this person. But if you're an athlete and you consume a lot of carbs, but you also burn a lot of carbs, I think there's no actual problem in this, you know. So most of these diet studies have been done in just normal population people who actually do almost no exercise. This is important to remember, in my opinion. If you don't do any exercise, if you don't use the carbs, then probably don't eat them. But if you use them, there's no real problem in this case.
Is it possible that just a lot of carbs that regular people eat are of bad quality, and if you cut them out, you're sort of healthier because you cut bad carbs out?
Yeah, I agree with that. You have the fast carbs, which are empty. They say they're empty because they don't contain many micronutrients like the vitamins and stuff. So if you eat them, it's only, let's say, additional energy. It's good for you and me who CrossFit a lot, but it's not good for people who don't CrossFit or don't do exercise. Take their car to home and then don't do anything. You see? So yes, in that case, if you then cut off the fast carbs, the sodas and so on, you will have immediately a healthier diet.
So you're sort of saying there are two parts. The first part is energy.
Yes.
So if you CrossFit a lot,
yes.
you have to have the energy
yes.
that's coming from carbs.
Yes.
The second one are the nutrients, micronutrients especially.
Yeah.
First, let's talk about the energy. What's the energy intake in calories that you recommend for CrossFitters? Can you say that?
Oh, no, I cannot say that. It depends on the body weight, the muscle mass, how much this person trains. It's very difficult. If you have to add up everything to get to a certain, let's say, calorie count, you're gonna have a hard time because there are so many unknown factors in this calculation.
Like what affects calorie intake?
Your basal metabolic rate, and this is already affected by the training you do, because you will have a higher basic metabolic rate after training, the days after training, or at least the hours after training. So you don't know that. This can vary about 150 to 100 calories more or less. It's not nothing, let's say, on the long term. So for example, your microbiome, how many calories are consumed, let's say. We don't know. There's research about it, but it's in early stages. So how many the microbes in your gut, many calories they use. The digestive system. So for example, it's known that if you eat proteins, it takes more calories to burn them, literally to burn them, to digest them, compared to fast carbs that just pass the intestines and there's no problem for your body. So these things, if you eat high carbs, high protein and so on, this all determines the total calorie need you have. So I always say you're gonna have a hard time if you want to exactly count the calories. You can do it. I don't know. Again, I'm not a nutritionist, but I just think that you're gonna have a hard time doing this.
I'm still drilling a bit more, even if you're not a nutritionist.
Yeah, that's good.
So if someone wants to sort of know how much calories they should take,
yes,
would you recommend going by feel? Say if they train once a day or twice a day, if they don't have enough energy for the training, they should up their intake. If they feel tired, they should up their intake. If they feel sort of sloppy, they should reduce it.
That's going to be always difficult feeling, I think, because so subjective. I mean, people are getting in the world, they're getting more and more fat, you see, and it's also because of the feel, let's say. So maybe what you could do is track your body weight and what you eat for, let's say, 7 days or 14 days. See how you're doing, you see. And if you want to lose weight, for example, try to every meal don't eat, let's say, too much. Just eat before satiety and track your calories or your macros and also your body weight, and then see where you're at caloric-wise. That's one option I think you could take.
So what you're saying is there's a correlation between calorie intake and body weight. If you take too much, you're going to increase your body weight. If you take too few calories, you're going to reduce weight.
Main determinant. Yeah. It's not even it goes further than the correlation, I think. It's the main determinant. I mean, even macro-wise, high carb and so on, high fat. It's the total energy intake that's going to determine the eventual body weight. Many studies are agreeing on that. But again, determining on your training, then you have to play a little bit with your macros because you need the carbs for the training, for high amount of training, let's say. Okay, 6 times a week, you need some carbs, otherwise you're going to have a problem on the long term.
What's the problem then? Are you not regenerating from the workouts?
So the problem is, I think, always is situated about glycogen. So glycogen is the glucose, the sugars, literally, that is stored in the body. So a male has around 500 grams of these sugars, glycogen, stored in the body. So that's around 2,000 calories, because 1 gram of glucose is 4 calories. So if you have 500, let's say gram glucose, you have around 2,000 calories. So this is the storage. And the body, if you start exercising, it will always start to emptying these stores, certainly when you go high intensity like CrossFit. Right?
How fast are they emptying?
Very fast. So it depends. So what do you mean? It depends on the exercise intensity, right? So if you do a 30 minutes very high intensity workout where you suffer, let's say from minute 1 till the end, you will decrease, I don't know the exact numbers, but it's going to be more than 50%, right? So you will burn a lot of carbs, let's say glucose, coming from the body. So that's why endurance athletes, they drink and eat carbs during a long event, because they want to spare the glycogen, they want to sprint to the finish, right? If the one that comes to the finish line who has the most glycogen will probably win, right? Because you sometimes hear that a sprint at the end of a long race is not the same as a sprint in the beginning of the race, let's say. Because the one who has the most carbs, let's say the most glycogen, will probably have a little bit more in store to feed his fast twitch fibers and win the race. This is a little bit the same with CrossFit. If you can pace yourself, that you can keep the carbs to a certain extent, then you can maybe push the last round a bit more.
So carbing up actually works.
Depends a bit. Depends. Not really, because CrossFit is so short that you probably have enough in the tank. As I said, it's around 40-50%, let's say, decrease in glycogen. But if you do a workout 30 minutes, 20 minutes, you will still have something in the tank. But if you do multiple workouts on one day, it could be interesting to increase your glycogen stores before that day, right? Or if you're a regional athlete, just saying something like that, you need the glycogen, and it's a good idea to load up a little bit the week before. Only in that case, so it's a very little amount of people. For the rest, CrossFit probably is too short to completely empty your glycogen stores.
Right. So that's one topic, sort of a caloric intake. What about micronutrients? So what are they, and where do you get them from? What are their purpose?
Micronutrients, yeah. I don't know much about the actual micronutrients. So what are they? They're the vitamins. I don't know how to say it in English, mostly, let's say the vitamins, and the vitamins, you get them from whole foods, so to speak. That's relatively, if you have a decent caloric intake, you're a man, 80 kilograms, a woman, 65 kilograms, you eat, let's say, 3,000 to 4,000 calories a day. As a CrossFitter, you can handle some calories, and you eat a varied whole food based diet, you won't have many problems with vitamins, except for vitamin D. Vitamin D in the Zurich and area, the Switzerland winter, you will have a shortage.
Especially in Olten, we always have clouds.
Is that so?
Us.
Okay, yeah. So if you don't go to the Alps a lot in the wintertime, you will have probably a deficiency in vitamin D, and that's something you can take in the wintertime.
How does that show if you're deficient in vitamin D?
Difficult to say. You can feel a little bit more tired, and it's actually, how did that show? That's difficult to say. I don't know exactly how that shows. But these are things that you can check with any doctor, blood tests. And if you don't take it in the winter, big chances you have a deficiency. So, and this could affect your immune system. That's known. Your bone quality. So no immediate effect. Certainly bone quality you probably won't feel, but immunosuppression, you will get sick maybe a bit earlier. These things are very common in athletes. So vitamin D is one of the few micronutrients you should really take.
What's your nutrition look like right now?
My nutrition is varied, just varied normal, let's say Belgian food.
Like what?
No, it's similar. I eat all the normal things, potatoes. I do eat meat. I eat fish. I eat 2 times a day. I eat vegetables, and I do eat some fast carbs situated around, let's say, mostly after my workout.
Like
So-
what fast carbs like?
Yeah, like the even unhealthy things, you know.
Cookies and stuff?
Cookies, yeah, I do eat cookies, but I'm not a top athlete, you know. But I do eat some cookies that contain not too much fat, more carbs, which is absolutely no problem after the workout because you're so empty. You need everything. You can have anything. There's really not much science saying that the contradiction to that. I even drink a Coke now and then after a workout. Again, I wouldn't do it before, but after a workout, because it's. I mean, I feel good doing it, and I have no problems. Why not? Why not?
So nutrition is one big topic, I think, for
Yeah.
a lot of CrossFitters.
Yeah.
What's another point coming up in that seminar apart from nutrition?
Yeah. So let me think. Let me just scroll down. If you have 1 minute of time.
For example, I don't know if you're knowledgeable about programming or about the how you would program a workout.
Yeah, so that's more difficult because there's not much science about CrossFit itself, you know. So maybe something I do know a little bit about, and also there's some science about, is the interference effect. What is that interference effect? Is that if you train a lot of strength and you do like CrossFit, aerobic exercise, aerobic capacity training just right after, you will have some kind of interference.
Meaning
Right.
that
Yeah, meaning that you will reduce your increases in strength.
so basically if you train for a 1 rep max back squat
Yeah.
and then you do a 30-minute metcon,
Yes.
you're not going to get as strong from the back
Yes,
squats.
yes. So that's the interesting part. You won't, as you stated it correctly, you won't get as strong, but you will get stronger. It's not that you completely blunt these effects, right? That's important. So that's the beauty about, I think, about CrossFit, just from a science base, is that you will have interference. You won't be the strongest power lifter in the world. This is backed up by science, not CrossFit, but they did strength training and then cycling, for example, which is very similar. And they did see a 10% reduction, most papers, about, of strength reductions. So you will get stronger, but a bit less. So these things are known, and there are actually some metabolic and enzymatic pathways deciphered already in the muscle that are affected by endurance exercise that could affect the protein synthesis or the strength training, the effects of strength training.
So if you would want to optimize performance, you would sort of split the workout.
Yes.
So
So if you really want to have the edge, so I know it's not really in the philosophy of CrossFit, but if you really want to have the edge, I could recommend, based on the papers I've read, that you could, like, for example, do in the morning the pure strength, you warm up, do strength, half an hour, you rest for 6 hours, and then do a training, CrossFit training, more endurance training. So, or you do it on different days. I know that's not really how CrossFit works, but if you really are the athlete that want to have the absolute edge and want to increase both things, it could be an idea.
do you think that's the difference between competitors and sort of the regular people training?
I think the most important, the competitors, for sure, they are training much more already. Mm-hmm. So that's difficult to state. I do not know, but I think that most competitors also just do CrossFit-based training, being strength workout, right? You know that better than me. So is that the difference? Maybe not. And also you need the time. It's not that easy to get in your scheme, right?
Yeah.
To train every day twice and stuff like that.
I think it depends really on the season as well, right? You have some off-season training
Yes.
where maybe you can split
Yes.
your workouts and
Yes.
get stronger and get
Yes.
your bike skills up,
Yes.
whatever. And then when the opens approach, you have
Yeah.
to get more specific and do CrossFit-like
Yeah,
workouts.
yeah, really, because then, except for maybe one workout, strength specific is not that important, right? So indeed, it depends really on the off season, and if you need to get maybe not really work on one specific weakness, but you can work on, let's say, more aerobic capacity, the whole picture, and more strength training, and then you can divide them a little bit in the off season, as you stated. For example, for me, I'm a more explosive one. If I want to get better in CrossFit, I should, during the off season, do a little bit less strength and do sometimes 2 times every 3 days, let's say, pure aerobic capacity and so on. Split it from the strength.
Do you work on your strength or on your weakness?
I work on the programming of Kreis 9. But yeah, I think if you want to get better, you should work on your weakness for sure. At least a little bit more than on your strength, right?
Because you have to be a generalist.
You need to
don't
be a
want to
generalist.
suck at something.
Yeah, you need to be a generalist. That's the sport of CrossFit. You need to be a generalist. That's my opinion. But if you don't have a good enough snatch, you will never get into the regional. So if that is your weakness, you have to work on it, right? Yeah.
From the psychological aspect, do you think it's fun to work on your weakness?
Depends on the person. If you see you get better at it, yes. If you really keep sucking at it, not. If you're really more an endurance athlete, you start CrossFit, endurance athlete, and you suck in 1 RM deadlift because you don't have the fast twitch fiber, you're gonna have a hard time. You can do all the small off programs, whatever you want, and you don't really get stronger. I think it must be painful for the person. But if you are not only endurance and you do increase in your deadlift, I think it could be fun. It really depends on your progress, right? Depends on progress.
What do you do besides crossfitting and working at ETH?
Maybe it's a funny jump, but I did my whole life, and still I played at a high level golf. So the complete opposite sport, let's say.
Mm-hmm.
So I did. In my high school, I was at a special school for golf. I played in the national team, European Championships, and so on. So I'm pretty good in golf. And that's also why I picked up CrossFit, because I needed something like more for my physiology. I can hit the ball pretty far. I'm quite explosive, but still I couldn't get my energy out, right? And then therefore I also do CrossFit. But at this point, I still play golf at a quite decent level, and I play some tournaments here in Switzerland, some Swiss federation tournaments.
How much do you play each week?
So in the winter time. It's almost impossible to play, literally. But in the summer, I play every week, once or twice. In the weekends, I go, or I play a tournament. So I play quite a lot. Yeah.
What do you like about golfing?
I like the mental part. It's very, very mental. So that I mean is that if you you only have one shot, obviously. So if you hit a bad shot, you have to get over it. You cannot think about that shot. You can hit it in the trees, and this is how it is. You have to play the next shot. The most important shot in golf is the next one. That's very mental. And also I like the technical part, to get better technique-wise. You really can improve your technique and improve your ball striking, and in this way get better in golf. So, and also like the last part, I like the training behind it. So I've been involved in the training of a very, very good golfer. So Thomas Pieters is a Belgian guy. He's one of the top players in the world. And to make him better physiology-wise, it's also interesting for me, obviously. Because golf nowadays, with the come of Tiger Woods, these people are real athletes. They're not maybe CrossFitters, but they are athletes. They're strong, explosive, big, strong, good guys, Used to be the guy with the cigarette, but now it's not anymore. They're athletes, and this is what interests me as well.
So how are you training such a young guy?
So I'm doing CrossFit-based workouts with him. Actually, he's a good mover. So I trained him high intensity because he doesn't have a lot of time to do a lot of physical training. Let's say certainly not during the competitions. It's 4 days in the week, which is five hours per day. So he doesn't have a lot of time. So he does for aerobic capacity. I give him some easy movement, easy CrossFit movements, but just a lot of reps and quite a long workout. And then I just do a lot of mobility and explosive training with mitts and balls, for example, rotational training with him, and also his physio is working on that. So these guys obviously have to rotate much more than in CrossFit. CrossFit, you don't really have to rotate. He really has to rotate with the mitts and ball, for example.
You mentioned the mental aspect. So
yes.
If you're hitting a ball into the trees, you
yes.
have to recover from that. Do you have specific techniques, or is it just being mentally strong?
Yeah, experience, some breathing techniques just to stop superficial breathing, keep the diaphragm breathing, keep it going. Also, I learned this from a professional player. He started to count the leaves on the trees.
And then he gets bored, and then
he
okay.
just tries to zone out.
Yeah.
That's what he did.
Okay.
And I don't go that far, I have to say. But really try to stay positive. Try to say, okay, I can hit this ball out of the woods and then still make my par, my four shots. Try to be positive. I can tell you, it's sometimes very difficult, and certainly when there's a lot of pressure, you're playing for winning a tournament. These guys, not me, but this professional player I coach, he plays for $10,000s of dollars, of francs. So he has to be very stressed. He must be able to handle the stress, let's say, because you have more time than in CrossFit.
To think about everything.
In CrossFit you have some time before, but during a workout you can pace a little bit, but it's much different than golf. You have all the time in the world.
What's your next upcoming project? So be it personal or from the ETH work-wise?
Oh yeah, so let's say personal. I am now working together with a physiotherapist who is very interested in golf and the physical aspect of golf, and we're starting a blog about this, and try to attack some specific things in golf. For example, biomechanics in golf, warming up in golf. This is very specific for the general public. We just have a blog.
What's it called?
It's powerswing.golf at .wordpress.com. So it's if you just type in Google science in golf, then you will find it. It's easier. We just started this up, and we will maybe in the relatively near future also make or organize some kind of congress or conference with some like-minded people, just to talk about physical activity and physical training in golf, because it's specific, obviously, and it's getting bigger and bigger because these guys are getting more athletic. And then, work-wise, I want to publish a paper where I'm on data where I'm working on for the last 2 years. I will eventually have to try to publish this, so it's very specific, not really interesting for this I think podcast, but it's to try to publish and to get recognized, So this is how you have to work as a scientist. Certainly at ETH, you have to publish in the highest impact factor journals that people recognize you, and that you can maybe get somewhere else another job or professorship and so on. This is how science works nowadays.
Cool. And for the Opens, what are your goals?
My goal is simple goal is just to get better and to be better ranked than last year. So why do I say that? Because I think that if you rank better than last year, you really became fitter, because everyone becomes fitter, right? So if you rank better than last year, then you become fitter, more fit than the rest of the population.
That's actually an important message, because you actually could get worse ranked and
Yeah,
still be
still
fitter,
be fitter.
than last
Yeah, yeah.
year.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
could improve everything, but still be worse
Yeah,
ranked.
because the CrossFit community, I mean, these guys are amazing athletes, and many people are very good. So if you get better ranking wise, you can have a tap on the back, I think.
So I hope you rank better. All the best for the Open, and thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me.